Welcome, Paul and Janae. It's great to have you here. This is our monthly OD Research and Design 101 conversation on this new platform. I'm looking forward to interact with our public listeners. This is brought to you by COMESA Global Online Channels. We host these shows. These are the conversations that recognize excellence and greatness. The stories that we tell really tell the humane side of the guests that we invite. And today we're going to hear more from Paul. So COMESA is building a solid ecosystem that is committed to the empowerment of others, collaborations across sectors, sharing of insights and knowledge, building a base for succession and inheritance, and safeguarding the legacies for generations after us. And we have partnered with a number of people, including yourself, Janae. Thank you very much for inviting Paul. We always follow the slogan called The Idea, which says we inform and entertain, we develop and educate, we build a network, we associate, and that is the idea. We go by the slogan, the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. So at this point in time, obviously, it is your moment, Janae. I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself, your show, and our guest. And I will be playing in the background and interjecting every now and then. But I will be chatting with our guests, and I can see we have one guest already joined. I encourage our guests to drop in some insights, feedback, or update or questions they may have as we enjoy the conversation facilitated by you, Janae. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sam, for the introduction and for the opportunity to help move organization development forward and be able to serve in global communities. Welcome everyone who's listening to the Organization Development Research and Design 101 conversation show. I'm your host and organization development practitioner, Janae Young. This show, as mentioned, is a streaming radio broadcast featured on the second Monday of each month right here on COMESA Global Communications and COMESA Radio Worldwide. I'm hosting from the United States, while our station is based in South Africa. And working globally is reflective of the OD values to affirmatively contribute to organizations and communities throughout the world. So we are so excited for such a platform to be able to have global impact in organization development. Just a little about me before we introduce our guest and get started in our conversation today. I grew up professionally in human resources for nearly 20 years as an HR generalist. I've worked in management and been an HR business partner. My roles were mostly concerned with talent management, employee relations, recruiting, and some HR operations for nearly 10 years in. And then there was a shift. I felt really connected to the mission of personal and professional growth and development. And the opportunity that I saw for that was to work through organization development. So my contributions today as an external practitioner is centered around helping to empower talent development and growth, specifically to people who are empowered to serve others. We want to make sure, or I want to make sure that people have the right tips, tools, information, methodologies, approaches to support them in their journey of being able to serve people who are depending on them. And so with this platform, in concert with COMESA, I'm really grateful to have our guests come on monthly who are experts in the field, who are emerging practitioners with those insights and ideas that will help support you as you support others. And I'm really excited because our conversation today is centered around the Organization Development Network's 2021 conference, which took place just a couple of weeks ago, June 1st through 4th, where the conference theme, a really dynamic one, evolving with impact, the future is now. And so I'm so excited to share this experience with you today with my esteemed guest, Paul Gowin. Paul is a Mustang Marine combat veteran turned organization development practitioner. He founded the Take Command Project, which collaborates with executives to increase revenue by developing people before profits. Paul stands at the intersection of language, leadership, and growth to create transformational results with his clients. He's utilized the same techniques to grow from childhood traumas and PTSD. Paul is on a mission to sail around the globe promoting sustainable world peace with his lady Valerie and his service dog Izzy. So, with no further ado, welcome to Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hello, Janae.
Hey.
Thank you so much. What a great opening. This is going to be so much fun.
Thank you so much for bringing the fun and energy around our conversation. And I'm so excited to have you. And thank you for our listeners for tuning into our conversation. Paul, we're so just jumping into it and just reflecting on your bio. You're a Mustang Marine combat veteran turned organization development practitioner. And that is not a journey that you hear about every day. Please enlighten us. How did you make this move? And could you tell us about what a Mustang Marine combat veteran is?
Wow, that is like the biggest, juiciest, giantest question.
Yes.
Let's see if we chunk it down a little bit. So
yes.
A Mustang Marine is one who starts off enlisted and then distinguishes his or herself in the eyes of the chain of command to have increased leadership responsibilities at a level that you can't have within the enlisted ranks. And so you join the officer ranks. So this is a complete overgeneralization, but you go from like the doer to the strategic manager, that tactical doer to that strategic manager. Again, gross oversimplification. For anybody that's familiar with the military, that simplification is for those people that might not be familiar with the military. Oh. It's about 1% of the Marine Corps, an organization of about, they're sitting a little above 200,000 people right now. So about 1% starts off going to boot camp and then earns that full commission.
Wow.
So that's the Mustang Marine part. It's a naval heritage term. The Marine Corps can't do anything without the Navy. And the Navy wouldn't nearly be as awesome without the Marine Corps. So that very wonderful relationship in America's military between the Marine Corps and the Navy. The combat veteran part is what led largely to becoming an OD practitioner. Went to Afghanistan in 2013. I disagree with what we have done over there, what we're doing over there. The greatest thing is that President Biden has directed the withdrawal. That was something I also contributed to in 2013 when I led and enrolled a team to help me plan how can we immediately downsize our combat strength in Southwest Afghanistan in 2013. And I'm really proud that hundreds of people were able to be sent home immediately, and that prevented the additional deployment of thousands of people. Unfortunately, the policies changed, and then more people ended up going, but I was able to make a small dent for a little bit of time. And that came because of what you were saying, within your role of HR, that you want to provide this personal and business growth. It's that yes and piece. And I wanted to see the same thing for the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine coalition partners from around the world. I wanted to see something similar, that we were looking to develop the people within these organizations so that we could contribute greater to the mission within Southwest Afghanistan. And then in that planning priority, what options might come forth? And one of those that I identified was we have too many people and not enough war. And I saw some people creating more war to justify more people. And that just didn't sit well with me.
Right.
So I love the OD approach of you develop the people first. You create an environment in which they can thrive, that has psychological safety, that has a good day's wage for a good day's effort. You develop those things as part of the business plan, and you're not just kind of dismissed into the corner of being aware of people's birthdays, anniversaries, and when they might retire, or how do we hire more people? There's such a greater role for OD practitioners to play for the strength of a business, for the triple bottom line of a business. And there's such a huge opportunity there. So that's where now, as a veteran, jumping in to really build upon what I learned in terms of planning for waging war, I can use a lot of those same planning techniques for how to accomplish any mission. Because right now, my mission is one of peace, of connectedness. It does not include combat.
Wow, that's a powerful introduction and statement, and how you came into organization development and some of the principles and values that you have around using the techniques and tips to help invest in personal growth. And just calling out too, the connectedness and the synergy between the Marines. Was it the Marines and the Navy?
Yeah.
Yes, the connectedness, like you need each other, and there is such connection between being able as a professional or contributor and talent, employee, whatever that nomenclature will be, depending on where you sit in an institution, that to be able to perform the business well, there has to be this investment in the personal growth piece, which organization development is about. And then your journey in using the techniques to be peaceful in the way that you're able to move forward. Was there an incident, a certain thing that perhaps happened personally or professionally to you where you got this moment of insight that this is how you wanted to structure your contribution in the world?
Yeah. I mean, was there a where was that fork in the road, Paul? Where
exactly.
you could have zigged, and instead you chose to zag. You could have gone left, and instead you chose to go right. And to be real, because I like to have real conversations, Janae. I think that's one of the reasons why you and I connected. Is we move well beyond, oh, well, how's the weather in New Jersey?
Exactly.
I'm out here in Arizona. Guess what? It's really hot. And tomorrow it's going to be hot. And
right.
I really like having the real conversation with you. I think it's one of the things that we connected over.
Yes.
So in that spirit, to be real, I got out of the Marine Corps just about 6 years ago after an almost 15-year career. Because when I got back from Afghanistan, although I was able to contribute to peace in the middle of a war zone, the accusations against my character and also how I delivered that message was very rough. I got frustrated, I got disrespectful, I got brash. And so when I got home from Afghanistan, I was very confused. I lost faith in the Marine Corps, I lost faith in America, I lost faith in the American people, that they actually wanted us in Afghanistan. And so when I got home, I got drunk, I got fat, I was miserable. And I got out. And so the first year of me being out was very dark. I continued to withdraw from society. I saw myself as a threat to society. I saw myself as not having the ability to contribute to society. I ran into a lot of civilians who, with the purest of intentions, would tell me they know exactly what I'm going through. And from my worldview was, no, you don't.
Right.
You don't understand. There's no way you could have understood me.
Right.
You don't know what I did.
Right.
And I was continuing to disengage and withdraw until I was looking at, again, to be real. Do I write a note to my kids for killing myself? Do I write one just to my mom?
Whoa.
Like, how does that work?
Whoa.
And I was thinking, like, well, how do I want to do it? Do I want to make sure that my mom, if she has to identify my body, that there's something there to identify?
Wow.
And so I was in that place.
That's a deep place. It's very real. Mm-hmm.
And I would rather, part of the journey that I've been on with mental health, physical health, emotional, spiritual health, mm-hmm. is educating some of the folks who say, Paul, suicide's not an option.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? I would rather have a conversation with someone that acknowledges that it is an option and respects me for not going down that path.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was an option, and a few things happened that evening. It was November 12th, 2015. Mm-hmm. I looked it up because it's the day of my rebirth. It is that fork in the road, Janae.
Mm-hmm.
Because a buddy of mine had a Facebook ad announcing that he'd partnered with a major influencer of the world and came out with this brand new course. And I knew this guy from college. And here we are, 15 years later, and I'm looking at his Facebook ad. So I bought his course. And it was a lot of the same personal development stuff that I heard over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Have a plan, have a goal. But instead, I took a different approach. I didn't want to learn it cognitively. I wanted to feel it emotionally. I wanted to practice what I was being told to see if I could get different results. Because the knowledge wasn't the question. It was, how was I applying it in my life?
Right.
So that changed everything.
Wow.
By first seeking to change me,
mm-hmm.
that is what allowed me to change my worldview, to change my perspective, to change my relationships, to set goals that align with my soul and not were in alignment with what people think I should do or should say or should be or should not be. I started living my ideal life. Now, it wasn't the ideal environment. It wasn't a lot of those different pieces, but it was a start.
Right. Wow. So first, I have to thank you for sharing, because in our journeys, we have the peaks and valleys. And I can imagine, in conversations that probably you have had based on what you have done, professionally over the years, it's really serious work. I mean, these are lives and deployments. This is big work that you're doing. There's also collectively in the last year or so many people experiencing dynamic change. I mean, there are a lot of people who could relate. And what is, I'm proud to see a lot of work around mental health and mm-hmm. mindfulness that's happening right now, because we're expected to be able to hit these peaks and valleys seamlessly. Like, we don't have these moments where we have to come to our new awakening and get on the journey that's meant for us. And sometimes we have those times that are not looking great and we have to figure it out. So the fact that you were able just a few short years ago, because 2015 is not a long time ago, to come into alignment with what your next step of the journey is and be able to switch that around and care about those who are also in similar spaces is just very selfless. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for helping us understand too, how you've been able to move from that place to where you are now as such a dynamic contributor with so many tips you've been able to give me over the past couple of days behind the scenes that have been awesome to implement. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
So now you mentioned something else. You mentioned the triple bottom line. So could you explain to listeners who may not be familiar with that? What is the triple bottom line?
I've seen it listed a few different ways in some of the academic research or some of the people that are way smarter than me. So please forgive me, because this is maybe just my take on what the term.
Yeah, no, please. Yes. It's our conversation.
When we go back to like listening to the bottom line or looking at the bottom line, mm-hmm. that's that cliche within business mm-hmm. that we're focused on the profits.
Okay.
And profits are important. So that would be mm-hmm. one of the bottom lines. Mm-hmm. For the profits to be maximized, you have to maximize relationships.
Right.
And the relationships piece is super broad, because you have the customer relationship, you have the vendor relationship, you have the relationship of how you're showing up on social media and the internet, or maybe you're old school and you have a billboard. Mm-hmm. The relationship among your team, the relationship among the executive team, the relationships between the CEO and her board of directors. Mm-hmm. There's all of those relationships. So that would be a second bottom line that can be measured, super broad. And then the third bottom, and not to mention the relationship with our environment, the relationship for corporate social responsibility. Those mm-hmm. would all be relationships as well. So
Absolutely.
Not solely between people, but also with how are we working with the environment around us, the different supplies that we have, so we're not having so much waste. So I'd say that'd be a second bottom line. The third bottom line, and this was that transformation for me on November 12th, 2015, was to change the individual, to not show up in some sort of transactional state with some motivational poster in the break room, but to actually work to support the individual member of the team for what it is that they want, in alignment to the two other bottom lines.
Wow.
So those three hold each other in check. It's not first we accomplish profits, so then we can build up more relationships. If anything, it's the complete inverse from everything I saw within the Marine Corps, training foreign militaries, working with civilian populations around the world, and the work that I've done now in my international firm. When you start with the person first and you help them out, if that's like a typing course so they can type faster, if that's
right.
A healthcare program so they can have eyeglasses so they can see what they're doing, right. If that's like responsible wages, if that's responsible hours, if that's giving paternal leave to the dads as well as maternal leave to those moms. Mm-hmm. That is ways, those are just ideas off the top of my head that you work to build up the person, because when you do that, they will show up in the relationships in a better way, in a way that represents the best of them, because the best of them is one that is growing.
Right.
When you do that, you will have profits well above and beyond anything you can forecast from the traditional approach of solely looking at that bottom line.
Right. Now, Paul, that is, if we could copy and paste to leaders to recognize, I mean, it feels like it would be so impactful. And it is when leaders who are in charge of, thousands of people, hundreds of people in their firms and organizations realize that, people before task, it does help with profit. Why do you feel like, or let me ask you, have you seen, as you've been doing your work in your firm internationally, a shift towards more leaders thinking in this way, approaching people before profit, investing in the person so that they can grow and then contribute? Do you still see that there's some static there? What are your insights on that?
Because we are still in the middle of a major traumatic event, we haven't, as a global society, been able to come out of that long enough to see what is the post-traumatic impact. So what I'm seeing right now is very dynamic. It is, it would be a challenge to see what type of patterns there are. But if I may, think about a time that you may have got a sliver, like the most tiniest little sliver. Like, have you ever had a hair sliver?
Okay. Yes.
Or like even like a little piece of glass where it's almost invisible.
Yes.
But you can like rub your finger over that area and you're like, something doesn't feel right.
Right.
I can't see it.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. I don't know why this hurts so annoyingly bad. And if you allow it to fester, it's going to get infected. It's going to cause more problems. Maybe an overprotective mother would say, you're going to die if you don't get that splinter taken out.
Right.
And I think that's what I'm seeing more than anything is right now, we're in the middle of an amazing amount of change, not only because of the pandemic, but also because of things like what you and I are doing right now, communicating across America with each other as though we were in the same room, with a radio producer in another continent, in another hemisphere, several time zones away. This revolution that we have with technology, some people equate it with another industrial revolution. I think that's short-sighted. I think this is somewhere on the orders of magnitude of the cognitive revolution, like from the first time humans started speaking coherently and having language. I think we're at that kind of a revolution right now.
So that's deep. That's really deep. Yes, I love that. That is deep and feels that way. Oh, to put words around it.
So I see a lot of leaders aware that there is something not right under the surface. They don't know what it is. They don't like how it feels. And they don't recognize, I think to quote Ryan Holiday, he wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way, that some of these managers or executives are looking to the workforce saying that this is an obstacle to their profits. And it's no. The obstacle is the way when you take care of your workforce.
Yes.
And you create an environment in which they can thrive, they will take care of you.
Right.
And so that's what I think I've been seeing more so is folks don't quite know what it is, but it's starting to fester for those who are continuing to want to return back to, I'm going to use air quotes here, normal.
Yes.
Go back to the way things used to be.
I don't. Why is that still the conversation that we're waiting for things to become normal again? Like that is not what we're going to experience going forward.
It's true. And to give a little humanity to those folks, it's because humans fundamentally across all generations, it doesn't matter what pigmentation of your skin you have, if you were born a male or a female, or what you identify with today, who you're attracted to. It doesn't matter what God you worship. It does not matter. Humans universally fear change.
It's true. Yes.
So why do some of those people? Well, they're humans. And they're going with that part of our programming where they are choosing to fear that change and not do something about it.
Right. To be in resistance of it, to try to control it. It's definitely something that feels unknown. And while some people can process that as opportunity and it can be great, for some it could be loss. It could be, what does this mean? Trying to make sense. I think in conference too, we talked about some sense making, some sessions just to talk about making sense of things that are changing as part of a process to offer to, those that we serve in OD, because, sometimes you kind of have to talk through it and have conversation to hear what are people thinking? What am I thinking? What are my thoughts about this? So I think I think you're right. I mean, I've said that this change feels like being in what it must have felt like to be in the middle of seeing the Ford Model Ts driving around more and more every day while others were on horse and buggy, to have informal traffic lights, and then all of a sudden, have traffic lights and things develop around you, and you're kind of thinking, oh, okay, well, this is the way it was and it'll be that way. And, someone else is still, the horse and buggy is still happening. But then, this, we're moving into what is next of society, and to be in the middle of that, I don't know if many of us have lived through such dynamic change like this.
It's true. And yet the rate of change continues to accelerate.
Right.
For tens of thousands of years, we didn't have that much in the way of technological advancement. I mean, you take a look at the Dark Ages in medieval Europe, a place that even dialogue and discourse around scientific development was met with death. They killed you for thinking about how to do things differently.
Right.
And then in a very short amount of time, once we started talking about how to do things differently, we did things differently, and we haven't slowed down since.
Right. And so the only thing that the age old out of that, the only thing that's constant is change is still one thing that's proving true. No matter how fast or slow it is, it's happening all the time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, I really like the premise behind this show of, well, here's the idea behind the show. It's to inform, to develop, to empower, and to associate. And there's some additional words there with entertain, educate, support, and network.
Yes.
These are some of the tools that transcend technology, that transcend language and different cultures and different creeds and different. When we work together to inform and develop and to empower and associate with one another, we all win.
Right.
And history bears the test of that. That's not my idea. I'm a student of history. I look to what our ancestors have done and the wisdom of our ancestors, and then do my best to forgive some of their shortcomings along with my own.
Right. And that's powerful. That's powerful right there. I mean, we have to continue to support each other and serve the needs and wants, in society. We all win when we are able to do all of those things that are facilitated in the idea, coming together and sharing resources in this way and ideas. So powerful. I feel like that's what our conference was about, right? Evolving, our conference was about evolving with impact, right? Like we're evolve with impact. The future is now. Like it's not this thing that's coming at us. Like we're in the future now. I was joking recently. I was talking to my mom. We were talking about the Jetsons and video phones. I mean, could you imagine like back in the 80s, like thinking that we could be on video phone, and let alone what you just called out, that we would be able to talk to each other in the same state as if we were almost in the same room, hosted in another country, in another continent across other time zones is like Jetsons like future. So it is now, it is happening. If anyone, so for those who are listening, we're kind of shifting into talking about the ODN conference, and you could go on to odnetwork.org. I want to make sure that I'm on the conference link now. So it's OD Network. O is in organization, D is in development. Network.org. And you could see in there, there's a link to the conference, and you could go on and see the speakers that we had at conference. We had world-renowned plenary speakers. We had conference sponsors that helped us that helped the organization put on a great dynamic conference for learning. We also had a conference planning committee. They're all listed on that page that did a terrific job with putting together the agenda, the speakers, and the experience. So why don't we talk about So were you there June 1st, a few weeks ago? Social Impact Day was the first day we had for conference.
It was so great.
What was that experience for you? Mm-hmm.
It was because I didn't really know about the OD field, like to know that there was a group of people, similar minded people. I was able to jump in to this and a little bit flat footed to just learn how does this show up within the global community. Mm-hmm. And on Social Impact Day, this was such a marvelous opportunity because there was, I think, 15 or 16 organizations from around the world that had contacted the Organization Development Network, OD Network, mm-hmm. and asked for some pro bono OD work. And when I registered, there was a little box that said, do you want to do this thing? And I'm like, yes, I like to do things that help people. Yes, count me in. Mm-hmm. And because they had already lined up an amazing team of primary facilitators with these different groups, I was able to observe and then at the right time contribute. And oh my gosh, I was connected with this company from Mozambique. Mm-hmm. And we were able to talk through some of their challenges of what they're facing within gender and ethnicity and mm-hmm. the economy and their location in the world for some of the challenges that they face with some of the global conflicts. And then how they could help grow their business, which was a business to help other people grow their business. So it got super meta at times. And it was just such an amazing opportunity to come together with a few people from America and connect with these folks from Mozambique. Mm-hmm. It was really a great way for me to jump into the OD network in the spirit of service and seeing what I could do to help contribute to this other company. What did you find?
That's so I found a similar experience, and I remember our ODN 2021, our chair for this year, Yaboom Gilpin Jackson, just opening up with a dynamic way of helping us connect around what OD is and giving reference to things that were things are happening in the world. At the time, there was a lot happening with Indigenous people. And so just giving some reverence into, how we can, again, use our tools and techniques to help empower communities. And that's, really what it's about when we're able to focus our efforts. And I probably, didn't do it justice in the way that she did. Of course, she just dynamically introduced the conference. And we had Peter Block as the speaker to also help us introduce the day. And I remember him helping us with the framing of the nonprofit organizations that you mentioned would apply to work with us pro bono on some real live issues and concerns that they had and problem solving. And I remember one thing that was so impactful, Paul, that he said, thinking of, the gist of it for me was, when you're thinking of a nonprofit organization, does that really communicate to someone in a position that might be able to help what that is about? Right? Like, what is it, a nonprofit organization? So sort of reframing the language around public benefit organization, that this organization is existing to provide public benefit. And so also thinking of those who may be the beneficiary of the efforts to help a public benefit company or a nonprofit company, that if we are not referring to that population as somebody who is maybe broken, because sometimes that might be the thought, I have to, help, this is broken, but really someone who's waiting to be empowered. You know what I mean? So the company that I was able to work with that day is based out of Milwaukee. So it was a US based company that was focused on communicating to their base about STI testing and being able to open that up more so that people could come in and recognize that they could have help around this, how they could spread the message, and how they could basically rebrand. So so our group was with them. We were with them for several hours. We heard the person from the nonprofit. I thought that was a dynamic experience because the people that we worked with, and I'm sure you found the same, they were never people that I had met before as OD practitioners. And, we sort of spoke the same language and used similar approaches to help the company we were supporting with outcomes that they would be able to take back to their organization. So it was a way to really practice. We're practitioners, right? It was a way to really practice OD that I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Completely agree. To be able to kick off an event of people from around the world with a day of service, and there were a lot of people there because it really, in the grand scheme of the conference, it was optional. But this was the way to start it. It wasn't that we had the conference and then as everybody's going into like a conference hangover, then we offer the assistance to the global community. No. Right. We did it on day one.
Right.
I thought that was such a pro move.
It was
for the event organizers. It was absolutely wonderful.
Great job to focus on it that way, and get us to just get our synapses firing around how we can help and use these methodologies. So I agree. I thought that was a great start to the day. And then we had some affinity groups that were available for people to go to. And then we had a...
Did you pop into those?
You know what? I did pop into a couple of them. I also use the time, and, we'll talk about some of the conference experience too, but I also use the time to go into some of the breakout conference experiences that this was a virtual conference, but we had these technology opportunities to go in and connect with people where your avatar bubble, this might be hard to imagine, but you go into a conference space that's set up like a cafe or set up like you're overlooking a city. These are virtual landscapes, if you will, set up like you're hanging out at a beachfront property. And then your avatar connects with another avatar and you can talk to each other in this lounge sort of space to maybe reflect on the day or share ideas. That was really cool. So I did go to infinity groups, but in those breakout times, I also did that. I also went into some of the technology spaces during those times as well.
Yeah, I felt like I was Zelda. Like I had to get close so I could open up the chat bubble, and figure out the next leg of my mission.
Right.
That was some pretty cool technology. The affinity groups they had.
Yes.
Few, right? Like they have. I'm gonna just read these out. They have Asian, Black, Indigenous peoples, Latinx, LGBTQAI, Middle East and North Africa. OD regional affiliates and women. Yeah. Pretty comprehensive there.
Yeah.
If
somewhere for everyone to connect.
What would you add?
Oh, that's a deep question. If I could add an OD or an affinity group. I don't know who is not. I feel like everyone's kind of represented and able to connect. I don't know. Do you have an idea of what you would add? I don't know what might be missing. I'm sure there's something that might be. You know what? Oh, I know what I would think. Okay, go ahead.
What do you got?
I think it would be something around an affinity group around being an internal OD practitioner and an external OD practitioner. Maybe that, because I've been internal and I've been external, and there are different experiences, and there's different ways to sort of approach the work and to be partners with the business and others that you're working with. So that probably, I mean, I don't know if that's the true definition of an affinity group, but if I could add a specific space, maybe that would be it. How about you?
I like that. Yeah. I wanted to see a space for veterans.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. How about that?
Within OD history,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the founders within this field were either veterans or people working around veterans or working to support veterans. And I think it was a big miss to not create a space for veterans from around the world, especially with some of the great conferences or the great topics that we had, like DE&I, and a lot of conversations around people's rights within DE&I. It is the veterans from every country that have assured their people those rights.
Right. That's, you know what? That's an excellent, I think that's a great one to add. And, you know, as we're evolving, right? So even going back to the homepage, like even if when you first landed on the homepage, talking about, you know, this was the premier education, professional development and networking event for OD and affiliated professionals, and being excited to be able to enhance practice and impact in organizations, community, in our world. We're glad you're here. Let's build the future of OD together. So maybe that would be, you know, showing up as something that could be, because that's a great group to be able to honor. And you're right, empowering all of us to have the conversations that we're having.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like your perspective, though, because it's one of those groups that unites. There's more of an emphasis of overlap. Regardless of background, geographical location, what plumbing you were born with, all of that, your sexual preferences. When we create a group that has a focus of our commonalities, of what we can all come together and identify with, I see that as a necessity to have that shared identity or that shared culture to be able to move forward as a team.
Yeah.
So I really like your idea.
Thank you. Well, cool. That was our day one in the affinity groups. And I guess we could say the affinity groups were each day, right? We had affinity group opportunities for connection each day. So,
They were.
So that's cool. And, you know, thinking about future possibilities perhaps too. So I'm looking at the agenda. What more do you have? Did you have any other takeaways from like day one? We had the plenary? We had the fire this time. Why OD professionals need to care about the health of our democracy. We had a welcoming reception. So I know we could probably talk for 4 or 5 hours if we went into every single presentation.
It's so
true. We had a great start and close in the day with plenary sessions from the world-renowned speakers that were there. And that day, I believe it was Carol Lukensmeyer that was the speaker for us on that day. So just helping us again with connection and information and how we are able to care for our societies.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, nothing else to add for day one.
Day two then. So day two. Yeah, day two was cool. So we're really in the conference now, day two. So what was your experience for day two?
You know, starting off with Peter Block and Barbara McAfee.
Oh my goodness.
Was a very interesting journey for me. I hadn't heard either one of them speak. I was loosely aware of some of their work. And I really enjoyed it, especially because in their plenary speech, they emphasized breaking out in small groups and socializing the learning.
Yes.
And I don't remember many other speakers doing that. it was more of a static lecture.
Mm-hmm.
And I took an immense amount of value out
Mm-hmm.
of the small group that I had from that talk.
Oh yeah. So I agree. That was a good day because it was a connection between, I felt like it was a multisensory day. So we were online and then we had powerful speaking from Peter Block. Now, for me, I'm a little more familiar with Peter Block, especially as an external consultant now or external practitioner, because he's written a book, Flawless Consulting. And that book, I remember it being a part of my master's program. Lots of consultants use the book, and I learned that I think they're on third edition now, and I may have an older edition, so I feel like I have to update my library with the third edition now. But he has powerful techniques to help connect with consulting and really to be able to drive value for those that you're helping in business as partnerships. And Barbara McAfee, her songs, they were the songs, they were collaborative. We could sing along. The words were so inspiring. And what was multisensory, like if you're, I mean, I think we all have talked about being on technology for meetings over the last year in an exhaustive manner, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
having a multisensory experience where there was music, she played live piano and sang, mixed in with the speaking, and then the breakout sessions did make for an interesting and dynamic experience, in my opinion. And the words were very inspiring. Her music was very inspiring. Words that she used in the lyrics that got us all to feel connection around our work too. So I think that's a big part of some of the conversation. People will hear the word connection over and over again, because that was a big part of the experience we walked away with, like networked and connected and interested and motivated to move forward. Definitely it for me. Then we had, let's see, what was next? We had breaking. So what else from day 2 was a takeaway for you?
I think this is where I really got to see that the OD field, the organization development movement, has a few major camps. That's day 2 is where I started seeing that and hearing some people's worldview clash with some of the other people, and just kind of observing how people worked with or sat in that energy. Some people got a little riled up, a little bit of some feathers ruffled, while other people are like, yeah, it's like the meta part of this field is that it is so broad. It is so available to be adapted. So if people are new to the field of OD that are listening today or on the replay, and they may have heard a definition of OD, here's a helpful little tip. There's probably 10 more. It's kind of like grandma's apple pie recipe. Like everybody has the best one, and they all vary slightly from one another. So day 2 was that awareness of some of the different directions that people have taken this field over the last 70 years.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I know that comes up through conversation about organization development, and how I've been able to, because I've been a practitioner now for probably about 10 years or so. And I've heard that come up. It's been some conversation about that. To me, it feels like, well, there is an approach that can fit different types of situations, that can sort of flex to what it is that you're looking for your client or your customer. That's been my takeaway. So if we are organizing that, and it feels like it's not supposed to look specifically one way. It seems like I have a dialogic approach that I can use with my customer here. This is their need. I have a diagnostic approach that I can use with my customer here. This is their need. This customer is an international customer. And so I need to look at this differently than I would in a US centric culture. I can examine, I could use different modes and practicum depending on whose needs I'm looking for. I feel like it's the beauty of HR to be able to do that, but I do see where, some people may have a perspective and frame it in a different way than someone else. And then it's sort of like this cornucopia, if you will, of, I can use this approach for this client. There are some clients that some approaches will not work for them in their culture, period. They may have a culture that is very evidence-based. It has to work this way. It's very outcome focused. There are cultures that would be able to adapt to, I want to use an AI approach for problem solving. There's so many different approaches that come together throughout. I felt like that was reflective of second day. We had the Global Forum, which was convened in partnership with IODA, which is the International Organization Development Association. And that was being able to see all of the different countries that were represented by people that were joining us, just a round table. And the day one, we had a little more story sharing. We had 2 days of Global Forum, the second and the last day. But it was nice to be able to see how many people showing up internationally convened around the Global Forum. And that has been presented annually in partnership with IODA and ODN for 35 years. This year was the 35th year. So that's been a tradition to continue to invite the conversation to be international. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think that this is the steps in the right direction, is to highlight that there are a lot of different flavors within this industry, and to be very aware of attempting to declare any one flavor to be the one true orthodox, beholden way of doing OD.
Right.
And I didn't really sense that explicitly. I did hear some of the old graybeards of the organization start talking about that this is not what OD is. And although I appreciate it from that perspective, there isn't really there isn't a unifying statement for the field, and that, I think, it's part of the strength. And as long as people are aware that flexibility gives the industry its strength, I think a lot less effort might be put towards asserting that this is the definition, or this is how practitioners operate. It's like, no, this is how this practitioner operated, and this is the definition that she used, and it worked out pretty well in her particular situation. It's not this copy and paste of this is what we do and this is what we say and this is how we do it in all of these situations, almost regardless of context. So I really appreciated the awareness that there's a diverse approach in the field.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, because, even in some of our programs, the OD programs, across the world, some of the programs are OD practitioner centric. And then some of the programs are scholar practitioner centric, so we have some different learnings and different outcomes that we have. But you're right. You're absolutely right to be able to say this is the way that we can implement some of the things that we're working on with different approaches that are available to us. This was the day that we started to have some of the concurrent sessions, which is always beautiful. I've been to a couple of the conferences, Paul, and it feels like this part to me is always, I like this part because there's so many different wonderful choices of where you could go. But there was an Ask the Mentor session, Future of OD, setting the vision and collective goals, social learning, collaborating to create solutions to today's complex issues. There are so many. How Indigenous organizations creativity can meaningfully keep us in touch, achieving large-scale social change through democratizing OD, the evolution of OD and hierarchy-free organizations. Lots of different sessions to be able to go to.
Yeah.
And then later on, we had the Pathways to DEI, a conversation with leaders and practitioners.
Yeah, it was a very full day.
Yes.
Very full day. I was, as the conference went on, I was a little bit frustrated, maybe a lot of bit frustrated with how many concurrent sessions there were because I couldn't attend all of them.
Oh, no.
There was so much amazing information and I wanted to go check it all out. And that's one thing I appreciate for a physical location is you might have the grand ballroom and maybe 2 or 3 other breakout rooms. If you get to a major convention center, maybe you've got like 5 breakout rooms or something like that. but you don't have too much more than that. And the digital space allows for all of these other places that I want to be all at the same time. So
I know. I just I wanted to kind of duplicate myself and go into different sessions. I think they will be available, which that part I like too, that they will be available to view. If they aren't already, they might be already, but the ones that you probably weren't able to go to, you might be able to view, because a lot of them were recorded, which was pretty cool.
Right.
So, but yes, I felt the same way. It's like, oh, what do I do? Dilemma. Should I go to this session or not? I felt like the general takeaway from day two, there were tools. I mean, in many of the options to go, there were handouts or resources. And I think, if anyone is thinking of going to a future conference, that's also the beauty, that you could walk away with resources that'll be able to be helpful to you. When you go in, all of those different sessions had information attached to it that, you might be able to repurpose or learn more about. Mm-hmm. That was good. I think that definitely, I like that. I know so what else for day two? We can go to day three. I think
let's pop over to day three.
Pop over to day three was, so day three for us, we had the welcome and the plenary, the unlocking and igniting brand purpose. Great plenary for me.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah. Denise Roberson was so, I was gobsmacked coming off of that, off of this speech. I still am. She was absolutely amazing.
She was, I think some of the, I actually think the recordings are available too, if you were looking, but mm-hmm. Yes, she is really intentional and good at helping companies, break through the noise. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there. Mm-hmm. There's podcast and YouTube and all kinds of information coming to us, but being able to help brands lead with purpose, and helping them outperform competitors with creating growth and differentiation. And her experience personally, I mean, I think she's worked with the Grammy. She's worked with a lot of huge organizations to help them connect their brand with purpose and be able to ignite it. And she brought a lot of energy. I thought that was a great session for regardless of how large or small your organization is. So there was personal branding takeaways, things to empower mm-hmm. you personally, and at the organization level or with teams, there was brand empowerment all throughout that.
Because of her role of teaching marketing over at Pepperdine, mm-hmm. I think you touched on something there that's so crucial. She was able to translate the message to the individual for personal branding, to the small business, or to the large business. And lining those pieces up to shoot the gap so that wherever you are in the world with your business, with your practice, you had a takeaway. I thought that was especially masterful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and convincing business case for it, like, saying that 69% of customers globally say to be more credible than competitors, a company must talk about its behavior and impact on society and environment, not just customer product benefits it offers. To help companies understand is, like, what are you doing in the communities that you're serving, and not just talking about the product. That's 69% of global customers say that. Well, I mean, that's mm-hmm. a lot of people who say that, mm-hmm. 71% agree that if they perceive that a brand is putting profit over people, they'll lose trust in the brand forever. That's huge too.
And that kind of comes back to what we were talking about originally for that triple bottom line. Like, when you invest in your people right. before your profits, mm-hmm. you will have multiple times greater ways to serve everybody involved. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely loved everything she had to say. And I'm hoping because I am accepted to Pepperdine's MSOD program.
Yay!
I'm
Awesome.
hoping that I'm going to be able to take a class from her, but I'm not sure.
That would be great.
Right?
Yeah, share your branding ideas with me, please, if you do.
You'll be among the first to know.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. She says today, everything highlighted the business does is the brand, right? And talked about that dynamic commercial. She showed a dynamic commercial from, I think it was Procter and Gamble. And it was talking about the conversations. I think it came out in 2020, but the conversations that families are having, and it was specifically African American families, like what mothers and children and families are saying to each other in dynamic times. I think the takeaway from the commercial was was it Procter and Gamble or Johnson? I want to make sure I have the right company. So if it's not the right company, scratch it. But the impact of the commercial was that it felt so personal and it was very emotional. And what we were able to call out from watching it was that there was no brand promotion. There was not a product in the video that we watched. There was not a product that was being sold. It was just conversations and little vignettes of what's happening in different households. And people felt a really deep connection with it. And that was the brand being able to lead a conversation. I just thought Denise's presentation was really, really great. The fact that it was Procter and Gamble, that's the company. Okay. But the promotion was just so deep. You know, it was just the promotional material was so deep and just showing how brands can be impactful by using their voice and influence where it matters, and all as sort of a social responsibility, and not just be able to sell product. And that becomes a part of why people become connected to brand. I thought that was just like, you're right. That's so good. Like Denise, that was so good.
It's part of this perspective of the people who are trying to define the new normal. And then the rest of the world that's leading the way just says, no, we're constantly changing.
Right.
And here's one of the ways that things are changing is for you to really highlight your values.
Right.
Your impact away from the good or the service and that transactional point. Because the consumers of today are asking more questions. I remember growing up that my mom would say, when I tell you to jump, on your way up is when you can say, how high? Did you ever hear something like that in your life?
Wow. Yes.
Right?
My goodness.
And if we stick with that type of a worldview, the current generation would not only not jump first, but also be more inclined to say, well, jump where? In what direction? Where do you want me to land?
Right.
What's the impact of my landing on the environment around me and those other people? Right. Is everybody getting a chance to jump, or is this just me? And there's a lot of these other questions. And the previous generation that was raised with, on the way up, you ask how high. And the current generation that says, nope, I'm good to ask why first.
Right. Ooh.
That is going to create a real strain on the communication. Right. And we can apply that metaphor to any number of backgrounds and influences, socioeconomic background, ethnicity, all of these pieces, that when we can recognize that there's two worldviews that are going to be strained as soon as there's communication, then at least then we can identify, well, where is the stress the most? Where are we really getting bent out of shape with our communication? So that way we can come in and ease some of that pressure. Did I ever tell you I geek out on etymology?
No. Tell me about that.
So etymology is, what do our words mean?
Oh, yes.
So like geography, there's the geo and there's the graphy. Right. So writing about rocks. That's geography.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go into etymology of things like communication, it means to make public, to make common.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have communication that is strained or censored for one reason or another, that is going to inhibit already the communication, because the root of the word is to make public,
Wow.
to make common.
Oh, right.
So when we have that awareness of, you know what, to make this thing public, that you come from a culture and a generation that you're supposed to jump and then ask how high. And I come from a culture and a generation that says, actually, before I commit to this, there's a lot of other answers that I want. Being able to communicate through that clash is what's going to allow us to hand the world over to our descendants in a little bit better shape than maybe how we inherited it.
That is such a powerful visual and true. I mean, how does that get reconciled? Because there seems to be, so much rub when that happens that it almost feels like I can't control what I usually like to control. The fact that I can say jump and then you say how high, and now I get to question before I do. I mean, that does create a rub in many, many ways. How do we help people connect with, what do you find that helps people connect with getting through that rub and being able to be respectful of different perceptions and perspectives and ways of communicating? How do you see that? It's a deep question.
I'm going to rock the boat.
It's a deep thing. Yeah.
I'm going to rock the boat. Hang on.
Oh boy, let me grab onto something.
Yeah, buckle in. This is more than a seatbelt. Like, grab the 5-point harness here. And hear me out, because I look to the wisdom of the ancients. This is not my idea.
Okay.
I look to the language of our elders to guide me in answering this question. Conflict, not combat. That's how we do it.
Okay.
And when we look to the etymology of conflict, it literally means the coming together of two minds. Well, two foreheads.
Two foreheads, yes.
So the meeting of the minds, two heads coming together. Two heads are better than one. You have healthy, safe conflict in which the communication can be hashed out. And we recognize that agreement is not the same as respect. You can disagree and not be disrespectful. And that's a crucial part of healthy conflict, is understanding that I can disagree with you. And that doesn't make me phobic of any aspect of you or your argument or what you believe in. That makes me in disagreement. And even in disagreement, we can be respectful. So I would say conflict, not combat, because combat, the wisdom from the ancients, is straight up like, I'm going to fight, I'm going to beat, I'm going to batter you.
Right.
So we promote conflict and not combat. And within our country, Janae, of America, that's going to be a particular challenge. We've been at war for 20 years, and we've really romanticized the warrior. So we've got some challenges in this country for how to untangle our love affair with combat.
Well, what's interesting that comes up for me is the conflict part. Okay, I thought I was going to be majorly blown away. But you know what, Paul? I hear more conversation around healthy conflict, which does not mean, to your point, combat, but healthy conflict is a part of normal getting, kind of ironing through to the next place that we need to be in. I could see where that happens. And your point about disagreement. Now, I think that part is hard, because it feels like today, if someone disagrees with another person, it's all this other stuff that seems to come with it. Like, like either you completely agree with the way that I'm doing things, completely agree with my approach. There's no room for nuance. It seems like, people will make decisions I like or dislike you as a person if you don't agree with me as a person. Like,
Right.
there's no nuance to say, I don't see eye to eye on this particular thing. I wouldn't have handled it this particular way. That's not necessarily my particular approach, but
Right.
I have space to sort of let in or kind of see, what it is why you're approaching it that way or why you think that way. I don't necessarily agree, but I have space to still respect you at the end of the day. You can be your personhood and have a different opinion, and I can still respect you even if your opinion is different than mine. I don't know what seems so hard about that. It seems like, it's difficult to have difference of opinion today. I mean, we've been in some tense experiences as a society over the last couple of years with, just merging of ideas and geography, bringing up disagreement and not being able to understand how we have to kind of move through that in order to get to where we need to get to. Yeah.
It's dicey for sure.
It is.
Because we can use this radio show as an example. As I was getting ready to be on your show, I was prepping for a video-based interaction, right? And as that changed with your awesome producer, Sam, giving you a shout out there. I know you're in the background working this.
Shout out to Sam.
As we were working through that, I respect you as the host of your show, that there is a certain way that this show is rolled out. I may agree or disagree that we don't get to look at each other's faces as we're talking. But my agreement or my disagreement with that almost becomes unimportant.
Yeah.
Because in my commitment to this relationship and me bringing the best of me to this relationship, my personal preference, and this is where I think we get this agreement thing really skewed, is my personal preference is to connect with somebody on video. I'm not, nothing about this format precludes me from connecting with you.
Yeah.
If I allowed my preference to blind me to the opportunity to connect with you like this, then we wouldn't have the energy. We wouldn't have the connection. I wouldn't be able to serve at the highest levels in this relationship. If I allowed my preference to cloud the opportunity to respect you, and it doesn't matter if I agree that this is the right way or not. I respect that you are the host. You asked me to be on this show. I said yes, and then I commit to bringing the best of me. And if we can use that just in any other topic, politics, the pandemic, or any of these other pieces, if we can recognize that I have a personal preference, so do you, and we are working together to create something greater than our individual siloed contributions. I think that's where we can really improve as a global community right now.
Wonderful example to use. It's tangible for us. And at the end of the day, right? Like I hear what you're saying in that. So there are people who might walk away and say, hey, I want to learn more about this profession. Hey, I'd like to connect with someone and work with an OD practitioner. I'd like to work with Paul. I'd like to work with Kametza. I'd like to work with Sam or Janae, or let me look up those plenary speakers and maybe I can connect and buy one of their books, or I'll join ODN, whatever it is. What you're saying is, regardless of the how, at the end of the day, the message and the information is more important. So even if there is my preference, your preference for how that happened, it still would happen. I think if people could get that, that model, sometimes, things become a stalemate, right? Because we do not, if I have my preference and you have your preference and we allow those individual preferences to stand in the way, then we don't the people who are looking for whatever they need, they don't get served with what it is that they may be looking for or need. Right. So I see what
So
you're
true.
saying. And so, if we could, I don't know. I think that's why this kind of work is important from all of us as
Right.
practitioners, that we continue to demonstrate and be examples. And, some people write books, and then other people, I guess, going into some of the other stuff from some of the other concurrent sessions. There was an opportunity that you could learn about, an opportunity to write in the OD publications. Right. So some people are
review.
writers in the OD review, the OD
Right.
practitioner. Some people write scholarly articles. Some
Mhm.
people write books. Some people do blogs. Some people
Right.
do vlogs. Some people are on radio. But we're all working towards what is that way that we can help people understand through whatever medium works best for them. Right. So it feels like that's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And
I think so.
Networking, we have these networking breaks in between too. And the networking is, it seems like every time I've attended conference, I've walked away connecting with someone that I could reach out to, or they could reach out to me in the background for whatever reason, that we'd be able to more powerfully serve our customers. So that's always been good. Those takeaways have always been good. Anything else? I mean, there's so much to talk about on these.
It was so great. I think what would be interesting is if we were to capture what OD Network did for you. Like, why was this something that you were wanting to invest like 4 pretty full days? In case somebody is like, I don't know if I want to go to the OD Network conference, why was it that you were attracted to go?
So I was attracted to go because I like to be refreshed annually as a practitioner, or as often as I can. I want my pulse on the industry, on the profession, to stay as fresh as possible. And there have been years, Paul, that in the beginning, I was an emerging practitioner. I was there to learn. I was able to receive. I feel like I'm at a place now where, and in some of the breakout sessions, I was able to contribute. I feel like I'm at a place where I can contribute a little bit more. I'm not in the emerging practitioner space as much. I'm more of a, contributing practitioner. And so there were some spaces where in some breakouts and things, I made connections with people and was able to help them or send them a resource or connect later for whatever reason. Some people that may be in school have questions that they want to do an interview with a current practitioner, things like that. It was about learning. It was about resources to give and to get and contribution. So it's pretty cool to be on a different side of it where, I remember being emerging and now being a little bit more on the contributor side, which was pretty cool. I think the other thing was the various sessions. I mean, it was a good price point for a virtual conference, and the different sessions, the concurrent sessions were in, I guess, different categories. Like each day was sort of, the concurrent sessions were around creating unity and connection in a disconnected world, diversity, equity, and inclusion, transformative technology, agility. There were these things. If you were concerned about technology, concerned about DE&I, agility, you could go to something from that day that connected with what it is that you either wanted to contribute to or get resources from. So that was the answer for me. And I like the question. I like the call, the evolving with impact. The future was now. That's attractive about, why we're all convening in this space this year. So how about for yourself?
I would say if you were a person that was interested into like this OD network conference, is this thing for me? Anytime that I see a group of people coming together, wanting to improve themselves and the group, I have not really been disappointed with something like that. So I would say if you're an OD practitioner, whether you've been doing it for a few decades, or you're brand new, or you don't even know what OD is, well, this would be a really great way to jump in and orient yourself on the space, especially because, like we talked about, there are so many different flavors within what we hold under the umbrella term of OD. So I would strongly recommend people to jump in and look at this. I thought they did a really great job of balancing input from the different major parts of OD, allowed a place of healthy discussion because that's that conflict. I believe something that's a little bit different than you. So let's bring our minds together. Let's go forehead to forehead to figure it out together. And I think more than anything, the relationships that I made across those 4 days is the piece that's just continuing to fuel my fire. I mean, it's why we're doing this right now, is because of the relationships that you and I created across this conference.
Yeah, agreed for sure. I think that it was when I think about what you were saying about relationships, I think that's probably one of the best parts. I think the relationship part is one, contributing, learning, and the relationships are one of the best parts. It is the reason why we're able to continue to do the things that it is that we are doing. I would also say that I was struck by people, Paul, who were not necessarily OD practitioners joining the conference. So the affiliates, if you will. I was in session with a few people who were in operations in their organizations or in communities. And one person described an OD curiosity. She said, I'm curious about OD. There were other people who said, I kind of found out in a different informal way that some of the approach of how I do my work in operations fields is a part of organization development. And so I wanted to get some understanding and some more formal conversation or some more formal resources for things that I'm already doing. I'm not an OD practitioner. I probably would not become an OD practitioner, but I would join conferences to get information and learn more about it. And I would put that into my daily practice as an operations person, which I thought was pretty cool, because there were not only OD people there, if you will. There's all kinds of people and all kinds of positions. So I thought that was pretty cool that the person saw, as you pointed out earlier in our conversation, the benefit of the people and what people need to get at a if you're in an operations role is really, really helpful. So
do you mind just repeating yourself? We lost you a bit there.
Yeah, we lost you just for a second there, Janae.
Sorry. Okay. So no, I was just saying that those who were in operations, that that the fact that they were able to connect around the information and bring it back because they realized that the people first over the profit. And if you invest in them personally and professionally, that you would be able to offering them to get to their best will help them offer their best to their organizations. And so I was really, I was struck by that people who weren't necessarily calling themselves OD practitioners were there because they saw the benefit of the work and how they could get those resources and take them back to their organizations and put them into their personal practice. So I thought that part was cool. Yeah, I thought that part was cool. So I think we're getting towards, is there anything about day 3? My gosh, look at all these great sessions. Is there anything else about day 3?
Holy smokes. I think what else happened on day 3? I'm like looking through my notes here.
I'm looking through mine as well. It was a bit of a
blur.
Oh, yes, it was a blur. But you know what? Oh, calling this one out, because this was a big one. Day 3, the inaugural Elevating Humanity Award in Dialogue.
That was day 3.
That was day 3.
That was day 3. Yes.
And so Otto Schrammer, and he's the senior lecturer at MIT Management Sloan School and co-founder of it's the Presencing Institute.
Presencing Institute.
Yes. He was the recipient, and the way that they were able to have so many people, if you will, give him his flowers about his work and his contribution, and all that he's been able to do. That part was dynamic. So he received that inaugural Elevating Humanity Award. I mean, isn't that deep? Like elevating humanity, the term of it, and what he's been able to do has been incredible.
He was someone that I had only heard his name as I'm jumping into this field. I have so much reading. I don't think I'm ever going to finish. And to see a few pieces, the respect and regard that so many people within the field have for Otto, and the really great video that was produced with the montage of just well wishes and congratulations. I believe fellow Navy veteran Ron Banerjee, studying over at Penn State, is the one who assembled the videos. So we got to watch just some of the titans of the community come together and love on Otto. And I love what you emphasized around this was the inaugural award. Mm-hmm. Thinking one step deeper about that means the OD network is continuing to push themselves to grow for what are those traits, what are those values, what is their triple bottom line that they're really wanting to bring into the world. Right. And by inaugurating this award, Elevating Humanity, I think it clearly demonstrates that the OD network is doing the work themselves as an organization and taking a look at how they can do something different than how things have always been done. Because that shows a healthy organization, one that's progressing and adapting.
Absolutely. Just the fact that and what Otto has been able to do, he chairs MIT Ideas Program for sustainability across sector innovation. I'm just looking at some of the things that he's done. Just for those who are listening who may or may not be familiar, he introduced the concept of presencing, learning from the emerging future. He has best-selling books Theory U and Presence. He later co-founded with Peter Senge, Joseph Jaworski, and Betty Sue Flowers. There are so many things that could be said about him. He has a new book that's out in 2018. That was The Essentials of Theory U. Mm-hmm. He co-founded an MIT lab, a massive open online course, the MOOC courses for leading profound change. That is really cool. I mean, I don't know if, have you ever I don't know if you've attended a MOOC course. Like there's so many great universities across the world who have these massive online open courses for free or for a minimal cost. And the lessons or the sessions that they have are ones that they offer within university. They're able to offer it throughout these. It's really cool that he's been able to help co-found one.
You know, if you have the time to jump onto a massive online role-playing game, you have time to get into a massive online course. And you might not be able to level up your backpack and your clan as quickly, but I think it's one of those things that can absolutely level up your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if, there's information about him on the site as well, but he has a PhD. He received other awards for excellence in training at MIT, across the world. In 2018, he was the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, appointed to him to the UN Learning Council for the 2030 Agenda. For 2019, he's ranked number 3 of the world's top 30 education professionals by global gurus. I mean, like, you know, if there's someone who's elevating humanity, there's someone who has that demonstrated track record as he does. I thought that was pretty cool. And all of the sentiments, like you said, that were shared. I think that was one of the remarkable takeaways from day 3. And I think that leads us into like day 4. So we are closing down, the home stretch in day 4. So that was the second global forum, which we talked a little bit about on day 2. All of the different countries that were there and people that were represented. We sort of had this global campfire approach. We had an image on the screen of like a global campfire, and people are introducing themselves and also saying in their native language or their, you know, native tongue what hello might be in their country, in their home country.
Right.
So that was pretty cool. And so what else for you from the last day? I think we're now kind of thinking of all the stuff that has happened and what came up for you the last day.
Gosh, again, this was, at this point, it was a bit of a blur because I had, 3 previous full days of conferencing, and this final day, I was taking more time to stretch and care for my body. And I think that helped really dive in and get some of these nuggets. One of the concurrent sessions really stood out to me. It was called When Cultures Meet.
Oh, yes.
Creating Robust Organizations. We
were in there together.
Did we do that together?
Yeah, we did that together, Mr. Clegg.
Yeah. So without giving too much of
too much information.
So Jeff Boudreau, and I met with him a few days ago to discuss his approach, and really fascinating conversation. So to frame this, about 20% of the participants in his breakout session were put into one group that Janae and I were both in. And then the 80% were put in this other group. And to say that they had contrasting cultures would be a bit of an understatement. And it was engineered to be that way, to create some of that conflict, to then see, could we resolve this with communication?
Right.
And I'm proud to say that my group, when I got, and then after a little bit of time, the minority group got distributed across the majority. Because they all had their own little breakout groups. So about 5% of us from our group got dropped into each one of these other groups. And that was such a fascinating exercise, and highly recommend his company and his work. It's Power Plus Systems, or Power and Systems Incorporated.
Yes.
Loved that breakout.
Yes, that was a terrific breakout. Your description of it was so good. I mean, the constraints of communicating with different cultures came up, how to resolve it, what it must feel like. It felt, even though we were in a simulation, you felt like really personal about some of the things that were going on and happening. And you can see it play out when you look at, power structures, in organization culture. I mean, even in organization culture, right? There's always like, when you work for a company, I've worked for companies, there's sort of this dominant, if you will, kind of organization culture. And then there's sort of like, sometimes like an alternative, a different, like a subculture, like there's this realization that there's this other powerful dynamic happening sort of at the same time. That's what came up for me personally, but just in the way that he did this was having cultures meet, and what comes up geographically was just, that was dynamic. His work is very based in Otto Kroger's work. and he does the organization workshop. So, Jeff Boudreau's work is, if people are familiar with that work, the power systems work, he does a continuation and continues to bring those principles forward, which is awesome.
What was the biggest thing that stood out for you as we went from our little group of perky and positive, and we got distributed to some contrasting perspectives? What was some of the biggest things that you learned from that?
Exactly what you've been talking about during our conversation: communication, the difference in the communication styles, and how communication is so important, and without it, communication styles are so important that it can be completely disruptive if you have initiatives, projects, tasks that need to be done. It sort of goes to the wayside because you have to learn how you make decisions together. You have to learn how you communicate cohesively. If you don't establish that, then it seems like all of this great intention to get things done doesn't happen, Right. So I think that's what came up for me about that. And if you don't care for that, if you don't facilitate it the right way, if you don't pay attention to it, if you don't nurture communication, it doesn't matter how great the idea really is, right? Because it just doesn't really seem like it happens. Even if it's a really, it would be beneficial. It would be great if, it doesn't. Communication is really important. And it seems like communication is cliche, right? Like everyone, every program and every organization talks about the importance of communication. But it was really interesting to be able to see, so that it's not something playing in the background, to put it in the forefront, that was a big part of how you get things done, properly being able to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier around, the transactional approach of being the yeah guy or yeah gal. Like you understand something cognitively, but until you put yourself through a crucible of transformation, you're going to miss out on these other opportunities to learn something at this emotional or spiritual level. And this was such a great little exercise that helped pierce through that, pierce through the cognitive. I get what he's trying to do here, and really challenge you to where some people were getting visibly emotional and visibly upset. I thought it was a delightful exercise.
Yeah, I think that's why. I think that's why so much of that is tied into our identity. And I think, Paul, another part that I took away from that is to be mindful of judgment, and to be mindful of things that I hold near and dear to some degree, that I'm not, if I can't allow something in, should I be curious about it a little bit more? Why is that person or these people or this culture or whatever it is, why is this the way that it is? And then also helping with, client work around that too, right? So how can we give grace when grace is needed? How can we make sure that we reserve judgment and witness a little bit more to try to understand and have curiosity, versus just cutting ourselves off from what possibility could be, because we're not able to take in something that's different, and interestingly, at the end of the day, we might find, and many great minds have probably, have said this, I'm sure, but, at the end of the day, we probably kind of want the same things, regardless of where we stand. We all want to make sure that we have the best available to us. We all want to make sure that we have the safety that we need, the resources that we need.
Right.
And so how we get there might be different, but that's kind of what everyone wants. That's global. That's universal. You know, that's not married to any particular identity, if you will. It's, you know, that's what most people want. It's like the foundation of living. So
I think when we focus on those overlaps, we really create a place to grab traction, to accomplish something together.
Right.
As opposed to asserting, well, this isn't how I do things because my culture does it this way. That was one of the steepest challenges to overcome, especially like in a combat zone. Can I tell you like a real world situation that we had that reminded me of what we did with Jeff's group here? Can I tell you about that real fast?
Oh yeah, please. Yes.
So there I was in Afghanistan.
Okay.
There I was. We had a few Afghanis. We had a British guy, and then we had a woman, an American woman, and me. Mm-hmm. And I had known all of them independently, and many Afghanis still had bad blood with the British from when they came to Afghanistan like 100 years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there goes 1/5 of the room, because now we've got this conflict because somebody's ancestors started something with somebody else's ancestors, and that was clouding our conversation. And then there was me, and I was able to have a little bit of a different rapport with the Afghanis because I had studied a lot of their language, their food, their music, and was able to interact with them in that regard. And then there was the other major white elephant in the room, which was this woman from America, and that the Afghanis, as opposed to maybe some more of the passive discrimination that my fellow officer may have experienced as a woman, there was explicit discrimination that she would not be part of the conversation. She would not even be able to be even in the same room if I was going to have these conversations with these Afghani guys. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. So I asked for her faith. I was like, please just do me a favor. Come sit in this other place. And oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't get too many terrible comments. But I asked her, let's just see if we can make this work. Let's see if we can figure this out. And she goes, okay. So I had her go to a different room. I went into the meeting with the Brit and these two Afghanis, and they had a question for me. And they didn't really want to talk to the British guy because of the bad blood there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. But you know who does know is this gal that's just in the other room because she can't be in this room because you won't talk to her. And they're like, oh, okay, well, can't you speak to the answer? And I'm like, nope, hold on one second, though. I'll be right back. So then I leave the room. I go hang out with her for a few minutes, and she's like, what's up? And I'm like, nothing. Mm-hmm. And I explained to her what's going on. Like, I'm gonna sweat this a little bit. So, 5 minutes later, go back into the room, and I give like a fraction of an answer. And they start getting a little frustrated. Well, we need the whole answer. We're planning these things throughout this province, these military operations. There's a lot of efforts on the line. We need to have this other answer too. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. Well, don't you know it? No, I'll be right back. So I go down the hallway.
Oh, this is okay. Mm-hmm.
And I sit down with, my friend, and she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm coming to get another answer from you. She's like, but I'm not even telling you anything. And I just like, I know, we're good. And so, this time, I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes. And then I go back. And by this time, the Brit is starting to get upset. And the Afghani is starting to get upset, which I wanted them to. Because they were getting upset with me. Mm-hmm. And in that upsettedness, they came together. In them being upset with me, they started talking.
Whoa.
To be upset with me. And that forced a conversation.
Whoa.
So I come back and I'm seeing a unified front. Paul, this meeting is not efficient. We can't have you going back and forth every time there's a question. You are wasting time. And I said, you're so right.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how can we make that better? Well, you need to be better informed. And I said, there is no amount of education, there's no amount of learning that I can do right now that I will ever be able to catch up with this gal. I agree. We need a more efficient meeting. Would it be impossible to have her in the room? The Afghanis said, yes. We cannot be seen speaking with a woman. And I said, okay, what if we create our own cultural agreement? What if we create our own agreement that the 5 of us will come together in this room to work together, and that outside of this room, if you 3 don't want to get along, talking to the Brit and to the 2 Afghanis, you 2 don't want to acknowledge each other as you're walking around the base, that's fine. If you don't want to give me the time of day, that's fine. If you don't want to look at this other female officer, that's fine. But right now, for the 5 of us to come together, can we do that right here, right now? Can we create our own culture? And Janae, I'm very proud to say it worked.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome.
So
gosh.
I want to see more of that. Maybe without some of the haranguing and some of the